7th, 2012 meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. The first item is on the agenda is other business. I've asked Pat Harris to come in. I just want to remind everyone that when we're here at the meetings on Wednesday night, we're serving as conservation commissioners, which means our job is to implement the Falmouth Wetlands Protection Act and the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. So our job is to listen to presentations, to ask questions, and then make decisions based on what people want to do and what the regulations are. Pat, I think sometimes we're a little confused by some of the presentations that are given.
I mention who Pat is.
Oh, wait, Pat.
Can you tell us who she is?
No, she's going to tell us who she is. She's going to tell us who she is.
You didn't hear me. Thank you, Maureen. For the record, my name is Pat Harris. I'm Associate Town Council. Your chair, Dr. Gladfelder, asked me to make a presentation this evening regarding the burden of proof and the probative value of evidence. I wouldn't characterize my conclusion that the commission is confused, but in fact, I've been very impressed by the decisions that have been written by the commission. I think in combination, the work by the commission members with the staff, that your decisions are supported by the evidence. But with new members, sometimes it's helpful, and with old members, it's helpful to remind what the burden of proof is and how to evaluate evidence. With that in mind, and with the goal of keeping this presentation brief and simple, I'll limit my discussion with regard to the burden of proof as it relates to an application for an order of conditions under the bylaw. The bylaw provides that an applicant for a permit has the burden of proving by a preponderance of the credible evidence that the work proposed will not have an unacceptable, significant, or cumulative effect upon the resource area values defined in the bylaw. The local regulations state that any person who files a permit to perform work within an area subject to the protection of the bylaw has the burden of demonstrating one of two things. One, that the area does not play a role in the protection of any resource area value, or, and this is the standard most often applicable, that the proposed work will contribute to protection of resource area values by complying with the performance standards of the regulations. So the burden of demonstration and the burden of demonstrating means the burden of proving by a preponderance of the credible evidence. And what is meant by the preponderance of credible evidence? It's to establish that the evidence proves that the fact is more likely to be true than not true. A preponderance of evidence means the greater weight of evidence. It refers to the quality and the persuasiveness of the evidence, not the number of witnesses or documents. The applicant for an order of condition has the burden of persuading you that it is more likely true than not that the project complies with all relevant performance standards. So how should the commission determine the probative value of evidence? The members of the commission come to the board with a wealth of professional and practical experience, extensive knowledge of wetland resource areas and values, and specific knowledge of the particular projects and the properties involved. In reviewing decisions of this commission, courts are required to give due weight to your experience, technical competence, and specialized knowledge. The Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts recently held that it is for the agency, the commission, not the reviewing court, to weigh the credibility of witnesses and to resolve factual disputes involving contradictory evidence. In addition, the reviewing court must defer to your right to draw inferences from the testimony and evidence before it. The Commission has recently received a number of affidavits in support of permit applications. An affidavit properly drawn is signed under the pains and penalties of perjury. This does not, however, mean that the Commission is required to accept as true all facts recited in the affidavit. The Commission must determine the probative value of testimony and the credibility of any witness, regardless of whether the testimony is presented in person or by affidavit. When evaluating the credibility of testimony, the Commission should evaluate the totality of circumstances. Review of the Commission's decision to reject certain evidence or testimony is based upon a standard of reasonableness. If the Commission's decision to reject certain testimony is reasonably based, i.e., explained in the findings and supported by the administrative record, a reviewing court will find that it is supported by substantial evidence. When evaluating testimony, the Commission should consider whether there is any conflicting information that is done by on-site observation, documentary evidence, staff reports, photographs, aerial photographs, plans, and prior filings in the record. When considering the reliability of witnesses, you should consider, is their testimony based on first-hand evidence? Is there any independent evidence supporting the version of their facts? How much time has elapsed since the matters described took place? A witness's memory of events may not be entirely accurate. Does the witness have a stake in the outcome? And is there a bias or sympathy? Is the testimony slanted unintentionally or otherwise? Also consider what is not said. That is particularly true when evaluating expert opinion testimony. When evaluating expert opinion testimony, you should also consider, are there flaws in the assumptions employed and the standards utilized? Is the opinion based on experience or guesswork? Is the expert qualified to provide an expert opinion? Recently, I saw testimony in written form from an expert, I think it was a geohydrologist, concerning how the regulation, concerning the interpretation of your regulations. The Commission is the expert on the interpretation of your regulations. If the Commission's interpretation is reasonably related to the purpose of the bylaw, its interpretation will be sustained by a court. Previously, I spoke to you about a 2008 decision of the Massachusetts Appeals Court, and I know you're familiar with the name. It's Pollard versus Norfolk. The court held in that case that because the Commission did not point to anything in the record to explain its rejection of an expert witness report and did not identify deficiencies in the evidence, that the decision was not supported by substantial evidence and the decision was overturned. However, notwithstanding that decision, Pollard stands for the proposition that the Commission has authority to determine the probative value of expert evidence and is not required to credit the consultant's report, even if it was not contradicted by contrary expert opinion in the record. But the Commission must make findings to explain its decision to reject the report to permit the court to do a meaningful review. An example of this Commission's proper application of the Pollard holding recently occurred in an enforcement action. The landowner's engineer in that case provided testimony interpreting an area depicted on a plan he had prepared approximately 20 years earlier. The Commission rejected his testimony and supported their contrary findings by reference to aerial photographs and staff reports, all of which contradicted the landowner's expert witness testimony. The reference materials were submitted into the record and cited in the decision. Another example is the Commission's rejection of an expert testimony regarding the impact of a proposed dock on navigational safety, one of the criteria in the recreational values of resource areas under our bylaw. The Commission enlisted the assistance of the harbor master, who provided expert testimony contradicting the applicant's expert. The denial decision included findings articulating why the Commission found the harbor master's testimony more probative than the applicant's expert testimony. Also, you're not always going to have town staff who can provide that kind of analysis and evaluation for you, so you should also be mindful that the state law and our bylaw allows the commission to provide for peer review of an applicant's expert report and authorizes the commission to require the applicant to pay for the peer review fee. In conclusion, the same type of critical analysis employed when evaluating expert testimony should be employed when evaluating affidavit testimony. Just as a commission does not have to accept as true expert opinion testimony, the commission does not have to accept as true testimony that has been sworn to under the pains and penalties of perjury. The facts stated may be challenged as inaccurate with contrary evidence by reasonable inference drawn from the record or with evidence challenging the credibility of the witness. I'd be happy to take any generalized questions, but I'd ask you not to ask any questions regarding matters pending before you. Obviously, I'd like to maintain attorney-client privilege if possible.
Thanks, Pat. Court?
Yeah, Pat, I think I understand where you're going with this, and obviously you're looking at it as a legal mind, and I understand where you're coming from, and I absolutely agree with you. My background was I was trained as a historian, and one of the things that you do is when you get into research is you consider primary and secondary sources. So in my mind, I would view an expert witness as a, quote, secondary source. They are simply evaluating from their perspective what happened, or what the testimony is, or what the regulation is. A primary source would be a witness. It could be a landowner. It could be staff. It could be anyone. You could take an example. If Abraham Lincoln writes an autobiography, that's a primary source because he was president of the United States, and you can't get much closer to a primary than that. On the other hand, you have to consider the source. Is it not true that Abraham Lincoln is going to paint his own biography in as good a color as possible? And so, while the facts may be very true in that biography, you still have to look at it based on other things. And so I absolutely understand where you're coming from, and I think it's imperative that this board look empirically at the information that we receive. Fine, we have an affidavit from a landowner or a whatever that they saw this happen, or they didn't do this. Well, I was trained as a historian to say, okay, fine, I'll look at that with a critical eye. That's fine, no problem, I understand where they're coming from. That's a piece of evidence, but I want to see corroborating information. I want to know from another source, are there different perceptions of the same facts? And so I think your presentation tonight is instructive for this commission, because I think we all need to be mindful of this as we deliberate on issues. And we have to, I guess in the shortest way, consider the source.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments? Thanks a lot, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
We always enjoy having you come visit us.
You're welcome every Wednesday night.
She knows she's welcome. A request for a continuance for hearings under a notice of intent. Frank Bauer, 145 Seapit Road, Wacoit, for permission to replace the existing 43 linear foot-long concrete block retaining wall with a vinyl sheet piling wall and landing, remove a brick walkway and timber post, after-the-fact approval of a 78-square-foot patio to install restoration and mitigation plantings and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant has requested a continuance until August
So moved.
Second.
Question. How many continuances is this?
Did you get this one?
I'm going to.
This is only the second.
Second or third?
No, this is either
Mine.
the first or second, according.
Okay,
We're working with them right now.
okay.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table. Are there any other questions on the board? Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none. Motion on the table is for a continuance until August 15th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. I forgot, we have another special guest tonight.
Oh, but that's under an RDA.
When is it? Oh, under an RDA.
Yep.
Okay, we have another special guest, but not yet. Okay, minutes. Ed has read the minutes for 6/13/2012, and
That's correct, and I find them substantially as I recall the discussions at our session, so I move approval of the minutes of June 13, 2012.
Second. Okay, any questions, corrections on the board to add? Okay, motion on the table is for approval of June 13th minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Okay, request for determination of applicability. Jack Doyle, 5 East Avenue, North Falmouth, for permission to construct a 10-foot by 10-foot screened-in porch addition.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project. We are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries now confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? For those of you who haven't been through this process, a negative means, believe it or not, that people can go ahead with the project as discussed with the staff. Motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Henry, is this you? Are you next? Okay, Falmouth Public Library, care of Henry Abrams, 310 East Falmouth Highway, East Falmouth, for permission to prune and remove invasive plants by hand in resource area buffer to Mill Pond. This is our next presentation, which will also be succinct but very informative. Thanks, Tom. Henry, why don't you tell us who you are and why you're here tonight?
My name is Henry Abrams. I'm a Life Scout from Boy Scout Troop 42 of East Falmouth, and I am working on my Eagle Scout service project. At the East Falmouth Library, the area facing Mill Pond has become overgrown with bittersweet and other invasive plants. For my Eagle project, I would like to remove as many invasive plants as possible. Removing these plants would provide better access to the pond and would provide more light and air to native plants. Once the area is clear, I would like to reestablish a fishing day at the area, a program which last occurred 16 years ago. The area consists of 3 sections which are separated by small clearings. The clearings provide access to the pond. Each area has a combination of native plants and trees as well as some invasive plants. The invasive plants in all the areas are bittersweet, multiflora rose, and Russian olive. This is what the area looks like from south to north. The circled parts represent areas where there are plants that should either be removed or should stay. The work we performed by a group of people from my family and Boy Scout troop. Many of these people will not know which plants should stay and which ones should go. To solve this problem, I visited the area with Conservation Agent Mark Kasparzik, and we identified all the plants there. I put together a guide containing names and pictures of the plants. Using this guide and showing them the plants there, I will teach my helpers which plants should stay and which ones should go. The first part of the work will consist of removing as much bittersweet as possible without leaving any area bare or damaging any native plants. Once the bittersweet has been removed, I will remove as much Russian olive and multiflora rose as possible. Once all of the plants have been removed, I will take them to the top of the hill where they will be picked up by the DPW. Are there any questions?
That was the answer.
Yes.
Oh, okay. The staff is recommending a negative 200 state in the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not conformed.
Okay, thank you.
So moved?
Do we have a second?
Enthusiastically seconded.
Okay, and let's see if we have any questions here. I have a question, since I've met your mom and dad. Do they know that they're part of the work crew?
Yes.
Oh, well, good.
I'm very impressed.
That would be, I would mirror Maureen's comment. I'm impressed.
Great.
I think that's,
Nice, totally understandable, and a lot of hard work. Good luck.
Ed,
Yeah, on that question of hard work, I have a question, how much time do you think might be involved in terms of the total work hours by all the people involved? Is it hours, is it days, is it weeks? What is your estimate? If you
Right
have
now,
one?
I think I have a day scheduled for 6 hours for the whole day. I think that should be enough. If not, I'll have another day with probably 6 hours again, and that should finish it.
Okay, thank you.
good. Court?
You may fully have described this in your application, and so forgive me if I'm asking the obvious, but I don't have a copy of the application in front of me. When you say you're removing the invasives, are you digging them out of the ground, or are you just cutting them down to the ground? And if you're just cutting them down, what is your plan to keep them from coming back?
This is the first step, Court.
Okay.
So I think after that, we can look at the area and see.
So
how many
basically, the
rows
project
there.
is to cut,
Yeah,
just cut the stuff.
It's initial removal,
Okay.
correct, Henry? Yes.
But it's not to pull it out of the ground or whatever. I
We're
mean,
not going to change.
I don't
the
have an issue with
project
that.
for
I'm
the
just
next
trying
5
to
years.
get a
Yeah.
handle
No,
on
I
what the scope of
understand.
work is.
I have a question, Henry. Would you be willing to drop off your cards that you've made up, that you helped, you said you made cards up with the plans and the ID?
Yeah.
Could
Yeah,
you
that would
drop
be-
a section, a pack of those cards off to us so we can use them in the future? That would be great.
Yeah,
Thank
that would
you.
be very
That would be helpful.
helpful to us
for-
also.
To also homeowners, we can put them up outside.
Yeah, oh, that's
I
great.
absolutely second that. I think that's one of the most encouraging points of your talk, was to hear you, the educational part of your project, to show others what's good and what's bad, what stays and what goes. That's simple, but it's not simple. That's a very, very powerful thing.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table.
And good luck.
I'll ask if, are there any comments from the audience? Would you like to say, well, you have to come up. You have to tell us who you are, and you have to say whether you're willing to work for 2 days.
My name is Elizabeth Abrams. I'm Henry's mom. Somewhere in the application packet, you should have a colored copy of all that stuff, of the plants and the IDs with all the names.
Yeah, we don't have it, the staff has it.
Okay, so but you should get that at some point, and you'll be able to look at it. That's all I wanted to
It could
say.
be in the actual hard file. I just have a copy of everything
All
in
right.
front of me.
Good. Ted?
Henry, do you want to advertise the day you want to do this while you have Town of Falmouth watching?
Right now, I have it planned for July 1st,
July 1st.
Which is?
Next Monday.
Sunday,
Sunday.
Sunday, I think.
At 10?
9 o'clock, right?
9?
Okay, because would you, if you could trade volunteers, would you mind having some more people come?
I would not mind.
You would not mind? Okay, so those of you who would like to help support an Eagle Scout project and clean up invasives by the Mill Pond, that's great, thank you.
July 1st, Sunday. 9
July
o'clock.
1st, 9 o'clock by the library. Okay, so there's a motion and a second on the table. If I don't see any further questions, we'll ask for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you. So we look forward to being able to, seeing a nice clear section next week.
Good luck, Henry.
Okay, continued request for determination of applicability. Marlene Belfort, 3 Main Entry Way, North Falmouth, for after-the-fact permission to allow the existing driveway.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant has requested a continuance until July 25th.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is a continuance to July 25th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Kevin and Susan Glynn, 20 Green Harbor Drive, East Falmouth, for permission to pump, fill, and abandon or remove the existing leach pit and install a new Title V sewage disposal system.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant has withdrawn their application.
Okay. Moving on to request for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held under the jurisdiction of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. Stephen Cook, 286 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, for permission to construct a 20-foot by 26.5-foot addition, 4.5 by 20-foot deck, a new set of stairs to relocate the septic tank, install native mitigation plantings and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant has requested a continuance until July 11th.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is a continuance to July 11th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Ellen Clements, 259 Lakeshore Drive, East Falmouth, for permission to raise, that's R-A-Z-E, the existing dwelling and construct a new single-family house with a covered porch, decks with steps, step landscape walls, landing and stairs, to install a new Title V sewage disposal system, utilities, dry wells, native mitigation plantings, grade modifications, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll say that in my
Question.
comments until after Mr. Costa's presentation.
Good evening, Matt.
Good evening. For the record, Matt Costa, Christopher Costa and Associates, representing the applicant. You should be looking at a revised plan dated 6/20/12 that was filed last week. That plan's slightly different from what was filed originally with the application. Just to give you a quick rundown, the property is located on Lakeshore Drive and fronts on Jenkins Pond. Jenkins Pond is located in a Zone 2 well recharge area. So under our local regulations, FWR 10.0, Zone A is 100 feet from the edge of that high water mark. So essentially, we have an entire Zone A for our area of jurisdiction. What we're proposing to do is to raise the existing dwelling and rebuild a new dwelling on the property. Mrs. Clemens owns 2 lots, lots 21 and 21, lots 20 and 21 on Lakeshore Drive, and is planning to combine both of those lots. So you see on the plan a dashed line. That lot hasn't been combined yet. We're going to be filing an A&R plan with the planning board to combine both of those properties. What we've done with this particular project is the difference between the plan that was filed originally and the plan that you should be looking at now, again revised 6/20/12, is that we slid it back further from the resource area to get as much of the dwelling out of the 100-foot buffer zone as possible. What we were able to do is to essentially pull it back out of that 100-foot buffer zone area to the point where we have reduced the increase in impervious area to 83 square feet. So we're proposing an additional 83 square feet of impervious area. We're proposing to mitigate for that area, to plant mitigation plantings located along the east side of the deck to reestablish that natural vegetated area there and to enhance the buffer. We're also going to be upgrading the existing septic system to a Title V septic system, but that work is going to be out of the 100-foot buffer zone. We did propose dry wells to capture all the roof runoff in cooperation with gutters and downspouts. And again, we took, the applicant really went the extra mile here to try to get the structure moved back as far away from the resource area and out of that buffer as possible. We literally can't slide it anymore because of the confines for getting the septic system in the front yard. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Matt. Jen?
Okay, Matt, I have just a couple of concerns. So the area east of the deck, where you're clearing naturally vegetated area that's in zone A, you're using that area as your mitigation, and you're aware that the regulations say that the mitigation planting should be as close to the resource area as possible, so you should look at that and calculate that. And the board's going to need to determine whether or not you would like this area to be cleared. I know that the board, some of you do not like the Zone A to be disturbed any more than it already is. It is a Zone 2, so it is afforded a little bit more protection. And the trees on the lot, Matt, they're not on the plan, so you might want to put those on the plan as well. That's important to have. And also, we'll need a copy of your BBW forms and your freshwater wetland forms for the wetland that was delineated there, because it is kind of a tricky area down in that point. So we'll need to take a look at that and see if you looked at the soils and everything. And that is it for right now.
Okay. Who has this one?
All right, tell you, but we do need, do you have the green cards, Matt?
Yes, I
And does this have a BBW number? Does this have a DEP number?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Courtney, can I start with you?
I have no questions.
Okay. Ed?
I'm a little bit perplexed. I guess it's a quandary. I'm looking at the two plans. The original plan with the deck had a lot of mitigation planting that I thought was a nice big improvement, particularly when you compare it with a lot, I guess, just to the east, which is looking rather naked. So I guess I'm just sort of I'm disappointed that we're losing all those plantings. But then again, it's...
But the house is further away from the resource
Right,
area,
right.
which
Well, there's
requires
nothing, yeah,
less
it's-
plantings, so.
There's nothing contrary to the regulations, I guess, in what you're proposing. I guess, but it's, I'm in an awkward position, and kind of wishing you'd kept the deck so we could get all those plantings. That's the quandary. But that's not your problem, that's mine.
The awkward positioning, Ed, is up the mitigation plantings around the deck. Is that what you have a?
No, the original plan called for a lot of mitigation plantings down near the pond.
No, I know.
Right.
And the mitigation plantings proposed under your regulations should be located closer to the resource.
Yes, you've already made that point, and I agree with that point. Right. But you did raise the question there. A lot of that has planted, a lot of it's lawn, but that's much better than the sandy beach next door to it. And I guess the point you raise is if you do move the mitigation plantings down there, recently we've been providing the guidance that you would put the plantings within the existing lawn area without disturbing that. I think that's accurate, is that correct? That's what we're getting at here. All right, that's all I have to say.
Tom?
I'm glad you moved the house further back. No other questions.
Maury?
What are you planning to use for your limit of work?
Sediment stop roll.
Okay.
That's not written in that, though.
No, just as limit of work.
Is that it?
That was all. Just as, it's pretty steep there.
And the conservation notes, note number 2 describes what it should be. It says sediment stop roll.
Okay,
Okay, thanks, Matt.
thank you.
Yep.
No question?
Link?
No questions.
No questions? Okay, I think we're gonna need a continuance because we need those BVW forms, and we need trees on the plan.
Yeah, the trees were marked on the original plan, but they somehow
Disappeared on the second.
disappeared on the
Yeah,
second
the
one.
nodes must have got shut off. This entire lot is covered with a tree canopy. I mean, you can't see it from Google Earth. The entire lot is covered.
Well, that's why you go and visit it on the ground.
Sure. We're going to be taking down 2 trees, but we're proposing 2 trees to be replanted. So I'll go ahead and put those, make sure those trees get shown back on there again. I'd just like to talk about the plantings for a second here, because yes, I see your point, and you want the plantings to go closer to the resource area. It's really the applicant's desire to maintain that lawn where it is now, because it's close to the beach area. What we have done was to propose the plantings in an area that would revegetate what was disturbed, bring it back to its natural state, which is part of that buffer to the pond, because she does own both lots here. So I would just like the board to possibly consider that fact, and that the whole purpose of moving this house back and getting it as far away from that resource area as possible, which is the main point of your regulations. I would hope that you would work with us a little bit on that, and that we can't really move it back any further. We would if we could, but we would really like to propose those plantings in that area to bring that area back to its natural state and to satisfy the requirement. So I would offer that for your consideration.
I have a question, Madam Chairman. When you say bring it back to the natural state, that's because you're disturbing it to build the house, part of it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you're disturbing it, then you're revegetating it. Sometimes this board requires, most of the time, if you disturb a naturally vegetated area, you need to restore that, plus add the plantings that you are required to do for the square footage of impervious increase in impervious surface. Also, the regulations state that the planting shouldn't have them that close to the porch. I mean, you need an access around that structure. So you'll have.
Well, they could actually access it underneath, but my point is, I basically was just, I mean, that's what my client would like, so I'm asking the board their opinion on that. Take it what it is, we'll go with your decision.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yes.
My opinion, if you're asking for it, Frank, is that, I think what's the total square feet of mitigation plantings?
300.
It says 378 on the plan?
Yeah.
That's not a tremendously large area, so when you're putting it down near the pond, you're still going to have lots of open space, which your client is looking for. I don't really think it's much of a problem.
And it's also a requirement in your regs.
Yeah, and it's not supposed to be within 10 feet of the house.
Right.
So there are 2 regs that are.
So I guess the feedback you're getting is,
Thank you, I appreciate your feedback.
we like it the way we're used to liking it.
Understood.
Matt, we have another question.
Actually, Matt, on your revised plan, you don't have the trees, but in your first plan, what were the numbers next to the trees representing? Like 80, 40, 100? What were those numbers mean?
That must have been the point numbers. There's usually, we say like a 30-inch oak or something like that would be 30 oak. If you're seeing numbers in the hundreds, it's probably point numbers.
Okay. I think it should be, we don't want your point number, we want the caliper.
Yeah,
of the
we
trees.
usually don't.
Yeah.
Give you-
Another quick question, because I didn't get, I apologize, I didn't get the revised plan, so I was working off my old plan, but some of the questions in the old plan do relate to this. Are you basing your calculations for lot coverage on the lots being combined, or as it stands?
On the lot coverage,
Yeah.
with regard to what, structures or your mitigation
Impervious.
standards? On the two lots,
You're combining the two lots?
yes,
So this will all have to be, I mean, and she owns both lots?
yes.
Okay. Usually we want the permits in place prior to you coming to us, because if, just by some remote chance, I mean, we should put a finding in there upon
Yeah, that it's not done
receiving-
yet, but it has to be.
We have to
yeah,
receive
It hasn't been
the-
combined, but it has to be combined before any work
Right.
can be done.
Right, because otherwise it's not on their property, or not the lot. Mitigation plantings and lawn, and I would have to concur with that we are required to have it closer to the resource area, so, if you wanted my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jen,
One
we need
quick
it,
thing. Matt, just to remind you.
and
that the-
Matt needs a date also.
I'll give him a date, 1 second, just to remind you, the BBW forms need the soil information as well.
And one last question, Matt.
Date is going to be July 18th.
Matt,
Yes.
The limit of work to run along the east side of the property?
north.
North, I'm sorry, north
North
side of
side.
the property. You have it just going to the property line, but there's a lot of work being proposed there, so.
Yeah, there's a whole row of rhododendrons down that property line that you would have to snake the, and it starts to.
Well, they might
slope
disappear,
up.
because, I mean, the rhododendrons, I mean, unless you're proposing not to do anything with the rhododendrons.
No, we're not. So it's going to, basically, that limit of work's going to go die into natural vegetation.
That doesn't mean fill doesn't run itself down through there, and it's pretty steep when it gets,
We can make a finding
Okay, we'll
that
make
the
a finding.
rhododendrons have to stay. Matt, can you, is the 18th okay for you?
Yeah, the 18th.
18th.
18th. Okay.
On behalf of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this to July 18th.
Second?
Okay, any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of a continuance to July 18th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Okay. Quistit Harbor Boatyard, 36 Quistit Harbor Road, Woods Hole, for permission to rebuild the main building, which includes partial foundation replacement, removal of loading dock to be replaced with a wooden deck, installation of a new Title V sewage disposal system, stormwater management, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my comments until after Mr. Martin's presentation.
David, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, David Martin, engineer, and in this case, project manager for the previous demolition and the reconstruction of the boatyard building burned in January. Wedley Doris, the owner of the manager, and manager of the yard, is here too. A little bit of history. January, the main building at the yard caught fire, was destroyed by the fire. Shortly after that, the building commissioner ordered it removed, debris cleaned up, and the unsafe portion of the structure destroyed. Worked with staff, we were issued an emergency certification, and that was replaced fairly uneventfully. So we're back before you to replace the building in kind. I guess I could walk through the building if you would, starting at the septic system, to the right of the page, if you have a site plan there. Currently, the septic system is located inside the building. You see a little round circle. We'd like to put a new Title V system in, no increase in flows, size for the existing use. The upper slab, the large slab shown on your plan, it will remain in place. It has a perimeter block foundation wall currently. We want to trench around the outside, remove the block wall, and replace the block wall with a board wall. There's a loading dock current concrete loading dock. We'd like to remove that and replace it with a wooden deck and remove the lower shed. Questions?
Is that it?
That's it.
Jen?
I'm better with questions
Dave,
than
do you want to go through your
presenting.
stormwater?
Would you like me to go through that?
Stormwater.
Sure. In your packet, there's a stormwater management plan. Hang on one second, I'll put my hands on that. State Stormwater Management Plan. There's a lot here. Briefly, it outlines erosion control measures, installation of dry wells to handle roof runoff, and long-term pollution prevention plan.
I think,
You're reducing the size of the impervious
Yeah,
surface.
we're definitely reducing the size of the impervious area.
I think a little, if you gave us a little information about what the erosion control,
That's actually a little bit challenging on this site. We tend to install limited work silt fence down the property line, install straw roll at the edge of the pavement staked in place, lashed to the rolls, and then have on site temporary erosion control that we can install on a daily basis. We're basically taking the building apart little by little and then reconstructing it. It's not remove the whole structure and put it in the truck and start over. We're keeping both ends of the building in place, so we have to remove the center section.
so as you're
As we
working
go.
that, it's sort of a rolling,
It's a rolling limit of work,
Right.
but it's also very discreet. And without being there, it's impossible to know what each day will bring.
right.
Dave, can you talk a little bit about the washdown collection trench that you have there?
The washdown collection trench will collect water from the pressure wash gun. When the boats are washed, it will collect that into the building. There'll be a lift pump inside the building. It will pump it through a line in the building to a holding tank at the upper end of the lot, and then it'll be trucked away by a licensed hauler.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have any questions, Madam
Who has
Chairman.
this one? You do?
Mr. Martin has worked with our town engineering department to address the stormwater regs on the site, so.
Right, it's a real learning process, isn't it?
That was a fun report, right?
Yeah, well, now you know how to do it.
Now I know how to do it.
Yeah. Ed?
If you need regs.
Yeah, just continuing this discussion on the washdown collection trench. Have you discussed with the property owner an approximate number of boats that might be washed down on, let's say, on a daily basis, and what the capacity of the collection trench and tank might be, and is there a match there?
There is. Actually, I looked at that number myself. Predominantly, they're hauling small boats called Harrishop 12.5s. They're 16 feet long. Some travel across town to owners' homes, and they handle them however they handle them. The math on a washdown for a single boat was something on the order of 10 gallons, based on the specs on the pump and the amount of time required to wash it. So we have a lot of boats worth in that 1,000-gallon tank.
So you're saying the washing you're talking about is really just a
It's a rinse.
little rinse? It's not a removal
We're
of a
not
heavy
removing- we're
load
not
of
removing material, no.
barnacles and all sorts of other growth which can sometimes occur?
It's a rinse. Typically, they don't come out covered with barnacles, so no. But we have 1,000 gallons capacity there.
Okay.
I mean, when full, we have a licensed hauler who will come, haul it away, fill it up again.
Okay, anything else, Ed?
No, I guess some of the stormwater stuff was the major issue. I was actually took a little shortcut in reading some of the documentation here. I was expecting our stormwater expert, Michelle West, to be here and carrying the ball on this issue as she usually does, so
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed that she's not here to help us out tonight.
Well, we also, our town stormwater engineer also worked with David, because to do these stormwater reports is quite complex, so
And
it
the town
has been looked at quite thoroughly.
And as I understand it, talking to DEP and then Jen, the town engineering department is the standard that I have to meet, so that's why I was close to the spot.
Good.
Well,
All our stormwater projects are going to be referred to the town engineering division for
Right.
review. So it's good that you were able to work with them up front and get their feedback on some of the issues that you were facing out there. I mean, you are a boatyard, high pollutant load. I mean,
Right.
you had a difficult site, so.
Other than that, I think it's important to recognize and emphasize that this is a commercial site. I think the documentation says the structure might have been built somewhere around 1870, so it's been there for almost 150 years. And your plan here is to basically rebuild a similar size structure, and no expansion, although you might be moving something a little bit there, back from the resource area, so. Well, those are important
Yeah, actually,
factors we all need to be aware of in reviewing this particular application.
our intention is to replicate it and put it back the way it was.
It'll be nice to see it back.
Right.
Court.
David, you've done a nice job with this,
Thank you.
and as an aside, you should be very proud of your daughter for her very fine performance at the Nationals a couple of weeks ago.
I am.
You should be.
As we are too.
Yeah, he's a hard worker.
And on that note, I have no other questions.
Tom?
I remember the day this burnt, because I was right next door. I had a pit in my stomach that was awful. I can only imagine the difficulty to see this burn up. Out of hard labor comes fruitful things, and this is absolutely a tremendous project on a constricted lot, a lot of effort to get to the details that you needed to. Outside of that, I'm elated to see this coming back as a vital part of our community that has been established for many, many years and trained many a sailor and had such positive, this is Cape Cod. This is where the roots get deep. And that's why, like a stump sprout, and we pick the leader that's going to grow, this is tremendous. I'm elated to see this. Thank you.
This is better than a stump sprout.
No, absolutely.
More.
I was just glad to see a new Title V septic put in.
Yeah.
Great improvement to the resources.
Sure it is.
Mike?
Just confirming, no floor drains on that first slot?
That's correct. No floor drains anywhere in the building.
Beautiful.
Ted?
Just one note from being out there today, I was speaking with about the trees. And I don't know about getting access to take down those trees if they do continue to decline. I mean, the cherries looks like it's pretty well toasted. The maple, Norway maple, looks like it's half baked, but, you know, once you construct all this, it's going to be more difficult to get in and take them out. Is that something you want to include in your...
We've shown the trees on the plan, and interestingly enough, the maple is the only tree on
Right.
the property. We waited until spring season to see if anything came back, sort of mixed results there. The maple clearly has half of it that is not coming back. It's an invasive species, perhaps.
It's a Norway maple?
Norway maple.
Those are the ones that shed, right?
As far as Ted, as far as the other trees, they're fairly small. They can be accessed otherwise, and that's on someone else's property. Perfectly willing to work with the neighbors on that. There's no issue there.
I mean, it is out, just outside the 100-foot too, so it's just something to consider taking out while you have the access and.
Excuse me, happy to do that. Mitigate with some cedars or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
can go down and look at some maple with it.
Yeah. Whatever
Okay, so why don't we put it as a finding that it could be taken out and replaced with cedars if,
Work with staff on
Yeah.
choosing some appropriate plants.
okay, anybody need any more information to make a decision?
Unfortunately, Madam Chairman, we cannot close this hearing.
Because we don't have a DEP number.
It's the only one.
Well, that's too bad. So when should we have a continuance to?
We can do July 11th, because it'll be for the issuance of the DEP number only. Other than that, we're not taking any more.
Though I won't be here the 11th. Will everybody else be here on the 11th? Okay.
On behalf of the applicant, I'd make the motion till July 11th.
I'll second.
Okay, any further questions on the board? Are there any questions from the audience? Any final words? Okay, motion on the table is a continuance to July 11th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
July 11th. Okay, Joseph Melnick, 167 Great Bay Street, East Falmouth, for permission to raise, RAZE, the existing dwelling and construct a single-family house with attached garage, walkway, patio, driveway expansion to install dry wells, utilities, native mitigation plantings, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my comments until after Mr. Costa's presentation.
Hello again, Matt.
Good evening. For the record, Matt Costa, Mr. Costa and Associates. Project's located at 167 Great Bay Street. It's on a little corner lot of Palm and Great Bay. It's at the top bluff overlooking the pond area out there. I think that's Great Pond. And there's a non-eroding coastal bank on the seaward side of Great Bay Street. We're proposing to raise this existing, that coastal bank's the closest resource area. We're proposing to raise the existing dwelling, to rebuild a new dwelling and driveway and associated grading and landscaping. We've done the calculations for mitigation for new impervious surfaces within Zone B. We don't have any work going on or new impervious surfaces in Zone A. We did come up with a mitigation requirement for that, and we've proposed the mitigation in the northeast corner of the property. It's a pretty straightforward project. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Jen?
No, it's a pretty straightforward. The only thing, Matt, did you talk to the town about putting the plantings in the road layout?
No, we've recently done that over on Sycamore area. So we're just proposing them
If
there.
it wasn't Sycamore, a paper road that was between, it was like just
No,
a
we
paper road?
we moved them over onto the actual Sycamore layout. There was that layout that ran in between our property and the water.
Yeah, but that was a paper road, that's not a utilized road, correct?
No,
Sycamore,
no,
that was,
there's pavement there.
there was, I
Yeah.
don't remember off the top of my head.
I mean, if there's, we're
The
trying to
only-
get as close to the resource area as possible. That's as close as we can.
Yes, and I applaud you for that. But in this case, you're within a town road layout, and I understand what we did with Sycamore, but I will say that we're having a number of problems out in the Great Bay area regarding traffic control and people driving on people's lawns and irrigation systems and everything else because they're trying to avoid vegetation on the coastal bank and everything like that. So I would feel more comfortable with just a letter from Peter or something
our town engineer saying that they're okay with that. We usually, or did in the past, require that. Like I said, Sycamore's been recent, but I can't remember off the top of my head the facts of that case.
We would, agree to a condition that the plantings location be worked out with staff prior to installation.
Okay, I could agree to that. You'll still need to contact the town engineer. I'm going to
Sure.
need his opinion for that, and we can condition that for you.
Sure,
Okay, and then we can work with you.
sure.
In this case, in your last project, it was more important that the plants be actually next to the resource area. In this case, they're, yes, closer to the resource area, but they're on the other side of a road. So these areas where these road layouts are, or the paper roads we have, get really
Well, we'll be having to
funky.
take the mitigation right off the
No,
plant.
you're not going to get that.
All right.
Because it serves wildlife habitat values, so even if it's pushed further in.
The bunny's gonna get run over by the cars. I mean, I don't know about the value there.
We'll talk about it. But it will be conditioned that you just contact Peter next week
Sure.
and have him go out, because I will actually be out in the area with the assistant highway superintendent tomorrow looking at one of these issues. So,
Sure.
not this particular property, but down the road. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, Ed, do you have the list of,
I did, yes.
okay, who's next? Who's this?
This is Mike.
Mike,
This is
It's Mike.
Mike, yes.
Mike,
there are 2 good-sized oaks on the northeast corner property line. They're not shown on your plan, so they're staying.
Are they out of the 100-foot buffer?
I think.
no, they're within the 100-foot
Not
buffer.
within the
Yeah, we're
northeast.
not proposing to take any trees down, actually.
Okay, there's just 2 nice oaks sitting there that
I figured-
other trees are shown,
figured they were
they are not.
on the other side of the property,
Yeah,
or on the property.
I guess I am a
There's a-
suspicious man by nature.
There's
No, they should be put on the plan,
There's
Mike,
no
so we
plan,
have a
there's
record
no
of them.
plans to make those disappear.
Okay.
But we still need them on.
Sure.
I think the questions the staff have addressed, I'm happy.
Okay.
Ted? Mort?
To you, Jen. Mitigation planting in the town road layout.
Gonna
It's a slippery slope to go down. Because we've never allowed it before.
I'd have to review the case, the
Yeah.
rest of the Sycamore case, like I said, I don't remember it off the top of my head. And we are having a problem on Great Bay Street, like I
Right.
said, with people trying to avoid the vegetation that's growing from the coastal bank. So they're pushing further into what residents
Right.
perceive as their property,
Property.
but it's really not. It's, 30 feet of the town's property.
And then-
So that's
yeah.
something that we're gonna have to talk with the town engineer about and the highway superintendent or the assistant highway superintendent tomorrow to see, because the site I'm looking at tomorrow, their sprinkler is within the town road layout.
Right.
So,
And the other concern would be that usually what happens is when they plant that buffer and it starts to grow, the first thing they're going to do is go over onto the resource side and prune
cut
back
back.
so that they
Where-
can fit through.
Yeah.
And I would also like to see the buffer, instead of it in this corner stuffed, usually we like to see it so that there's runoff from the property doesn't go across. It's usually a strip across the front, but that's, the discussion of the board. But I'm not comfortable with permitting mitigation planting. We won't, it's on somebody else's property. So if the town decides that they're going to widen that road or do something, then that mitigation is gone, and it should be on
so
the
it should
applicant's
be-
lot.
it absolutely should be moved. That's really up to the board.
Well, I think it's going to be up to engineering also, because, I just saw a project that we had on, just recently, that the town wanted plantings that wouldn't exceed a certain height, and they did not accept bayberry or inkberry on that project. So I would prefer inkberry and bayberry, so it would have to be on the applicant's lot so that we could get the full benefit of the habitat.
And if you would like a letter from town engineering prior to closing, that's fine.
I think that that would have been part of the filing, because you're asking to put something on somebody else's property, and you haven't, we haven't even, actually, it hasn't been noticed, the notice and the advertising wasn't correct because this is on town property. So
Well, it's
you-
on Great Bay Street, so.
And technically, they own, well, no, it's not.
Whatever,
All right.
it's just a slippery slope, I'm not gonna
For
find.
for this particular project, I think the condition of just working with the staff on the location would be fine. We'll stick them in a
I think-
spot that would work out
I think we
best.
would be more comfortable knowing where it's going to be before we make a decision on it. And I'm just going to make a comment, though I'm going to give a different opinion from yours. In this place, in mitigation planning, I'd rather have a clump because it'll serve better
Okay.
as wildlife habitat, and it's not, it's fairly flat there, and there's a road.
But isn't it close to the trees that aren't on the plan?
Well, there's a tree here and there's a tree here.
Trees.
Okay.
They're right there and
We're
there.
in the lot line.
Tom?
Well, if the town in its infinite wisdom, if it ever decided to do something with Great Bay, would end up taking some pretty large trees out as well. So I'm satisfied if town says plant away. I don't have a problem with that, because I don't. That's it.
And then you don't have a problem if the mitigation planning that was required for this disappears when the town does something.
No. At that point in time, I wouldn't, because if the town decides in its infinite wisdom to take and cut a swath in trees, are we gonna take the town to do mitigating planning? Are we gonna have them do a one-to-one?
No, but I know that the town, for instance, the town paved or repaved Trotting Park Road.
Repaving.
Well, would you let me finish? Repaved Trotting Park Road, and put in a sidewalk, and had to be, person by person negotiations, because people had all planted out into the town layout. So it causes more problems for the town.
And I'm just gonna reiterate.
The requirement for this mitigation planning is the lot. There's another solution. The solution is, if the town were to remove this mitigation planning, it would have to be replanted on the lot.
Look, we're not
Ed.
looking to open a can of worms here. We just want to abide by the regulations. We'll move the plantings on our property. We'll work with staff to put them in a good strategic location. I just hate to continue this again, because I don't think it's a benefit to anybody involved in this process on a simple project like this.
Okay, it is a simple project, but the problem is, when you bring up things like this, it isn't a simple answer. And what decision is made on a given project has implications on decisions for other projects. Ed?
Well, I think we have from what I'm hearing, we have a good and reasonable resolution to the issue on the table that we're all agreeable to. And with that issue of the road taken care of, we can go back to calling this a straightforward project, and I have no additional questions.
Okay, Court?
Yeah, I echo the concerns of some of my fellow commissioners on the whole issue of the road layout. And I understand that you've agreed to do all the mitigation, so, I don't want to beat a dead horse. But I think that we all should be aware here that to get a letter of opinion from the town engineer is a letter of opinion about current circumstances. That's the way they exist today. But that's not something that we can take and put in a deed, because the town isn't binding itself to forever go by the opinion of the town engineer of the day. So I think that we as a commission go down a slippery slope,
They might pave it.
allowing any of this kind of stuff in a town layout. Because the town can take it away, and then we've lost the leverage. The other part of this is, and I think this is also important, regardless of whether the town said, no, the guy can do this, is that we lose, are we getting the town to bind themselves to this order of conditions?
No.
And that presents a problem. You're creating a situation by this, and I'm talking generally now, I'm not talking about this particular circumstance. And I know it's very common in this town for people to assume that the plot of land between their boundary and the edge of the pavement somehow is theirs to do whatever they want. But it isn't. And we should, therefore, as a general rule, as a policy, this commission should never approve any kind of mitigation for a private landowner in property that doesn't belong to that person. That is my point. In that, I agree strongly with Maury that it's a slippery slope. But I know this is an academic discussion because you've already agreed to modify it. I would also say, however, that, you could work with staff and so on, but I think I want to see a plan. As a commissioner, I want to see a plan. It may be something we can stamp and it's done, but I think that's...
You'd like a continuance to see a plan as to where it's going to be?
Right.
And the trees that
Right, all of
Mike
that.
identified?
I mean, this shouldn't take a long time, but I think it needs to be.
Well, can we put it on?
For the 11th?
The 11th is that switch as much as I possibly can on to you and myself for the 11th.
Technically, I couldn't file revised plans in time, so it would need to be the 18th.
Yep.
The 18th?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're coming back on the 18th anyway.
Mike, would you like to make
It
the,
saves you from 2 weeks.
would you like to make the,
Hong Kong.
That is true.
So 7/18.
at the request of the applicant?
Bright side.
Sure.
No, you have to make the motion. At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue to July 18th.
Second.
Okay, any other questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to continue until July 18th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Matt. Okay, Daryl and Janice Cugini, is that correct? Okay. 35 Charles River Road, East Falmouth, for permission to construct a fixed pier consisting of 4 foot by 20 foot walkway, 3 foot by 16 foot ramp, 6 foot by 16 foot terminal float, install 4 10-inch pilings, 4 12-inch pilings, a boat lift, underground water and electric service to the dock, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my questions until after Mr. Borselli's presentation.
Good evening, Mike.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes.
before we proceed, can I confirm that, ask if we have a letter from the harbor master in the file regarding navigation issues?
You may ask, and we'll ask Jen if she
in the
knows the
packet.
answer.
Because I think that is a requirement for filing, and I'm reluctant to proceed if we don't have it, because I think there may be some issues.
Are you sure that isn't in here?
I'm looking at it, see it off the top of my
Madam Chairman, it's attachment E of the notice.
It's
Yeah, it's
attached,
in the notice.
it's attachment in the notice?
Attachment E.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
That's what I'm looking for, thank you.
I got it, thanks, Mike.
Are you with us, Mike?
Is it my turn?
Oh, there
It's
we
your,
go.
it's your turn.
Out of my butters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. We're here tonight to present a project in accordance with the notice of intent we filed for a new fixed pier ramp and flow and associated pilings and proposed lift.
I'm joined tonight by Jack Vaccaro, who did the shellfish survey and associated report. The Caginis own a property at 35 Childs River Road. You may remember this property, formerly owned by the Delvecchios. There was some hearings before you to work out the details of some compliance matters in the property. The compliance issues were worked out with the commission and staff, and the property title changed to the Caginis. The Caginis have 2 boats, and one of the reasons they acquired this property is they were hopeful that they would have a place for their 2 boats. On the water, currently at the waterfront is a bulkhead and a walkway that's parallel to the shore. It has a license through Chapter 91. It's very old, and in fact, this commission approved its reconstruction a few years back, and it received a certificate of compliance. That's this structure here. And if you look at the plan, we perform a sounding survey, and you will see that the water depths are along the edge of the bulkhead vary from about 1.1 feet, 1.2 at this end. There's a couple spots where it's just over 2, and then it's about 18 inches at this end. There's not enough water depth to tie there, and the applicant was concerned about tying his boats alongside in the shallow water. His boats would ground out at a low tide. The close proximity of the propeller to the bottom would cause turbidity, prop wash, and for those 2 reasons, he is seeking permission to change the location where the boats would tie to a location that would be out on a float, out in deep water. So the project is to propose to construct a section that would be a fixed pier, a ramp, and a float. The float measures 6 by 16, which is 96 square feet. And that would allow him to tie 2 boats in a place where the water depth meets your standards. You've seen the harbor master letter. I'm sure you've also seen the shellfish report and the associated survey. Jack's here if there's any specific questions, but the results of the survey and the summary in the report basically indicate that this bottom is pretty much void of any shellfish habitat. There were a few animals found, but does not come close to meeting the density requirements for shellfish. It's basically a black muck with a hydrogen sulfide odor. It is very susceptible to turbidity by propeller wash in the shallow water. So this project, in our opinion, is an improvement over the potential conditions that could exist if the applicant were faced with having to tie alongside. In fact, he may be in a position where you could conceivably cause him to be in violation of the wetlands regulations, or certainly had the potential to cause some propeller wash and bottom disruption. I have with me as well, when I was looking at the regulations and trying to verify that this project met all the standards, I was just reading through FWR 10.16. And I made copies just so you could see it. The preamble to that whole section talks about turbulence, prop dredging, and why that's not a good thing. So I made a copy of that section just so for your reference and to put into the record.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
sure you probably already have read it over and over again, but it's quite clear that one of the issues you have with new docks and docks in shallow water is turbidity and propeller wash, and that potential would exist here if we don't do this project. So we really think this is an improvement environmentally, where we're not in an area that is viable shellfish habitat. We think we meet all the standards, both under your regulations and state regulations, and it's a good project. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Mike. Jen?
Two questions, well, a couple of questions. Mike, what is the difference between the plan that Jack did his survey off of and the plan that you presented tonight? Because Jack did his survey on May 24th off of, I'm assuming, a particular plan, and our plan date on this is June 5th?
Right. I think the only difference is we did supplemental soundings after we had learned that there were not significant shellfish in the area.
Okay.
The alignment of the dock, the length of the dock, actually, there was one change. The harbor master, the original plan that Jack did the survey on, I believe, was slightly longer.
Actually, the harbor master did his survey on April 27th.
Right.
And he had to shorten it. Jack did his
Yes.
survey on May 24th, over a month later.
Okay.
So did Jack do his survey on the longer dock or the shorter dock? I'm assuming the shorter dock.
I think he did it on the shorter dock.
And that brings me to my next point, Mr. Fakar. I think I asked at the last hearing in your report that you referenced the plan date that you did it off of, and I didn't see it here. In fact, I know I asked at the last hearing we saw you on a dock project.
Yes,
I had asked.
you certainly did, and for
And
that
is
reason,
it
I
on
did
here?
provide the reference date. On page 5 of my report, you'll find Figure 2, shellfish survey results, and in the
On-
bottom left-hand corner, you see a notation where it refers to a plan date, May 2nd, 2012.
Okay, and so, thank you, Jack. So, two lists.
Sometimes the plans get evolved, and we do the shellfish survey earlier on because...
Oh, I absolutely understand that, Mike, but in the future, if you just do a revision block for me, you know,
We'll try.
that would just make it easier, and it
Sure.
would save me from having to ask these questions. So
Yep.
if you had your original plan and then you revised it, just put short and long. Things like that, that's also. And the only other question I have, Mike, I don't really have an issue with it. The concept is, what's the depth underneath the lowest portion of your float?
That has been designed to provide the 1 foot required.
It's not 1 foot,
Separation.
it's 3 feet. The lowest, you need 3 foot separation between the lowest portion of your float.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes, you're right.
Okay,
And there is,
so-
from the bottom of the buoyant, the flotation to the mud line is a minimum of 3 feet.
Okay, I need a notation on your profile plan because I just scaled it out with my scale, and it says the lowest portion, you only have 2, it looks like you only have 2 feet unless I'm scaling this wrong, which I don't think I am. So could you
Yeah.
just double check that?
Yeah, I'm
for me?
aware of that requirement, yes.
Okay.
And we actually sized it for that, but I can put a notation on the
I need a
plan.
notation because it's not matching my engineering scale. Thanks. Unless I'm scaling it.
No, you're doing it right.
No, I know I am.
At least you think you are.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, from the
So I'm
information we
looking
were
at 2
given.
feet, so we're missing a whole foot, so that's going to have to somehow be remedied between this plan and the plan you submit.
Ed, who is this one?
Courtney.
Court.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is, the materials that you're going to use to construct this with, you're going to use the same type of coated pilings and so forth that exist there?
By coated, you mean?
Yeah, they were vinyl coated or...
Pearson pilings?
Yeah.
We actually hadn't gotten to that point in considering the materials, but we certainly won't, they won't be CCA treated, that's for sure. Your regulations don't allow for CCA treated.
The project, as I see it, the project itself is not, you've made a good attempt to get to the regulations. The only issue I have, and it's really not with this project, it's just a concern I have, and it's a general concern. We look at the, you pointed out that the bottom of that is all this unconsolidated muck and nasty stuff that nothing grows in. And clearly, there's a reason why that is. And that particular project, I would say, given the lawn and so forth, even though it's fescue grass, is clearly well-watered, well-fertilized. And I suspect that it, like a lot of other properties, is contributing to the nitrogen loading in those ponds. And that's of concern. I don't know whether that can be addressed in this case under this application, but that's a concern even more so than the dock itself. And that said, I have no other questions.
Ed?
No, as I might have hinted as we began this hearing, my only concern in reviewing this was what I perceive personally to be navigation issues, particularly because this property is directly across Charles River from the rather busy Edwards Boatyard. But I am not about to contradict the harbor master, who has indicated that he sees no issues. So I will defer to the harbor master on the issue, and I have no other questions.
Tom?
No questions.
Maury?
This is in shellfish habitat, though, am I correct? It's DMF
Well, it's
regulated?
considered, all water bodies in Falmouth are considered to be land-containing shellfish. So,
And we don't have a letter from DMF on this?
not yet, we haven't received that letter yet.
Right. So you're going to be continued, we'll wait for that. One of the statements you made, Mike, which we are, the turbidity thing is a big issue. We have permitted docks that are just for dinghies. Just because you get bigger boats doesn't mean you get bigger docks. They had docking up against the sheathing area. And it was probably for small boats, because if they scour the bottom or create turbidity, then you're in violation of your permit. So to use that as a reason to get out further for a bigger boat so they're not doing damage, that's not in our purview to create docks to accommodate people's sizes of boats. If that was your... This is in an area that it's under DMF's, it's saying it's shellfish habitat and it's a mapped area. I looked at the shellfish survey and it was definitely showed anoxia and nothing there. Unfortunately, I will agree with Courtney, the lawn, the site itself is probably exacerbating the degradation of the bottom there for shellfish. There's no buffer to protect it, and it's kind of a shame if you have that beautiful piece of property that they might want to do something like not fertilize the lawn with 3755 or whatever. That is not a Falmouth-friendly lawn by any stretch.
But there is some buffer.
Minimal,
There's,
yeah. I know.
There are patches of bayberry.
Yep. Can I follow up on that? Yeah, we have a buffer. We were required to put in a buffer. I understand what you're saying. You have a Falmouth-friendly lawn program, and it's perfectly legitimate for you to condition the type of fertilizer treatment like you would on any new house. I don't think that because we're advancing a plan to try to improve conditions that we should somehow suddenly be looked upon as the reason that Child River has become, the substrate has become not so good in front of our property. I mean,
No, I think, Mike,
It's a
Mike,
cumulative
you're
effect.
right that you're asking for an order of conditions, and the order of conditions can include Falmouth friendly lawn.
and I bet you that the previous orders already do that.
Oh, I can almost guarantee.
I can almost guarantee it.
So I
And-
don't know anything about the history.
And is the owner here?
Well, we did just have town council, and
So
it
do you
is
know about Falmouth
cumulative.
friendly lawn? Okay.
And it is a cumulative effect, Mike. It's not just, you know.
Absolutely.
And the improvement is just going out further for bigger boats. It's, I don't know what, if there were no boats there, it would be an improvement, because there'd be no turbidity.
Right, but if, on
The
that.
question is,
I know.
they're allowed to ask for
Right.
something, and this is the project that's in
Right.
front of us.
I understand
Yes.
that, but he used that, he said the reason that they want to go out further is so that they don't create turbidity. Well, that's, never mind.
Well, I'd like to follow up on that point.
And I would recommend a railing on that sheathing area so that there is no docking, because obviously they're very concerned about it, and that will prevent anybody from docking against the sheathing.
Well, let's follow up on this point. The potential exists for there to be turbidity. We didn't come to you tonight to try to make an improvement, and Mr. Cugini had to live with the conditions. He wouldn't be selling his boat. He'd live with the conditions, and he would have to manage the docking of his boat, and there would be a very real chance that there could be more potential turbidity. I don't know that this board would even be aware of it to enforce it, but we're trying to be proactive here and try to make a not-so-good situation better. So we're not trying to just spin this to get a bigger boat. You're not really supposed to be looking at boat sizes. Your regulations don't talk about boat sizes. They talk about water depth, and they talk about other performance standards for the structure, not conditioning boat sizes and things like that. And there's a presumption that you have overcome, there's an assumption that you've overcome the presumptions. Is that the right way to say it? If you meet your standards.
I'm not sure, but let's,
Yeah.
this is the project, this is the project that's in front of us. Let's
Right.
continue to see if there are any other questions.
Yeah,
okay?
well, I'm just trying to make the point that we're making this project so it meets your regs instead of having shallow water, which I think is a good thing.
Mike?
The electrical service, does it go all the way down to the boat, or does it stop on the?
The electrical service would go underneath the fixed portion, down the ramp, and it would be fastened under the float to probably one of the pilings, and there'd be just flexibility in the cabling so it could move with the tide. There's only about a 15-inch tidal range at most in here.
Okay. And the primary purpose of that electrical service is charging battery or
Well, the lift
the lift? Okay.
and, power, charging batteries, maybe some small foot candle lighting on the dock.
No objections to keeping the wattage down on that foot lighting?
It's a
There is-
mandatory.
There's a
That's
standard foot
mandatory.
candle
Mike.
limitation in your regs that we would have to abide by.
Okay.
Anything else, Mike?
No, I'm happy.
You have another question?
No, I guess we're at a point where we're
No,
ready to.
I have
You have a question?
Okay.
Mike, so to clarify the question I asked you this afternoon, you're asking for two pilings for the boat lift, so you're not asking for any additional pilings on the south side of that pier?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay. I'm gonna need that.
You asked the question, he answered the question.
I'm just giving it.
And I understand how you feel about tile pilings.
Okay.
Let's not get into that discussion right now.
Will you get me a revised plan showing the distance between the lowest
Absolutely,
portion of the
yes.
float and that?
And I need a DMF letter, too.
Yeah, and you need the DNF letter, so are you prepared for the 18th?
Assuming I have a DMF letter.
You should have a DMF letter by the 18th.
Well, don't these state agencies have a certain time they have to get stuff out?
And unfortunately for us, they're all staggered at different times, and they don't quite line up with your statutory requirement to hold a hearing within 21 days. These guys usually have like 30 days to get.
Yeah, so you should have a letter by the 18th.
I hope, yes.
Oh, Mike, I just have one other quick question about the buffer plantings. When you install the electrical and the water service, do you have to remove the buffer?
No.
Or you're gonna just mold it under somehow, or?
Well, there's one section that doesn't have buffer. There's one break in the,
Yeah, but your electrical service doesn't seem to go through that break.
well, it will. I can, I can do that. I can make that.
Can you move that so it shows, goes through the break, but then you're jogging it, because the break seems to be located slightly north of where you're positioning your dock?
Right, so what we'll do is we'll run the people under this deck.
Yeah, just run it to the deck and then,
Oh, you can
Yeah, he
actually
can-
do that? You make the
Yeah.
water lines? Oh, okay, that's great, all right. So if you want to just put that on the revised plan as well, that would be great. Thank you.
Tom?
I didn't have any questions, but I would like to make the comment. I understand, I can understand the train of thought behind doing this, and I can see someone wanting to be responsible in getting it away from the bulkhead. I can understand that totally. I didn't see any evidence of rubs or buoys or anything on the dock as is. So avoiding to tie it up because you don't want to do damage to an expensive boat, it kind of makes sense to go out there. And if it does meet performance standards, it's something that's very doable.
Courtney?
So we need a continuance until
July 18th.
July 18th. So I will move at the request of the applicant to continue this hearing to July 18th.
Second.
Okay, any other questions on the board?
Yes, I just want to,
You have another question?
I have a sort of concluding comment. The comments that I made regarding nitrogen loading and so forth were not directed at Mr. Cagini, okay? It's an observation, it's a concern. This is very much an educational thing. We have to get over the culture of growing chemically dependent lawns, particularly where we're trying to reduce nitrogen loading in our embayments. And that's a general comment. And I think that we in the town needs to do more in the education. Certainly the previous order conditions, while it provided for 8 inches of loam and fescue lawns and so on, beyond that didn't spell out any other detail as we do now. So I think it's more just an observation that I had, and I would hope that people in general who live along shorelines, and particularly areas like this, are much more mindful of the potential for nitrogen runoff into these bays, and to employ, I guess, best management practices to reduce that nitrogen into the environment. And that would mean reducing the amount of fertilizers, reducing irrigation, not using pesticides to kill off unfriendly weeds and things like that, and rather just allow the lawn to grow. That's why we specify a fescue, because the fescue grasses will go very deep. They'll go dormant in the winter, summer. It'll look brown, but it'll come back and be very healthy. And that's what we hope everybody does. End of lecture.
Thank you, Courtney.
Well, I could say thank you for the end of the lecture, too. Ed, do you have a lecture?
Well, I just want to add to what Mr. Byrd is saying.
This is not nitrogen.
By direct personal observation earlier today, down in the Seacoast Shore area on Edgewater Drive.
You saw a lot of ova.
Oh, well, I saw
in
a
the
tremendous amount of sea lettuce, just,
That's ova.
piles of this stuff, and it's only it's only June, so, God, it's gonna be a mess by the end of July down there, and it's all because of this excess nitrogen leaching into the waterways.
So,
Are there any questions from the audience? No, I'm not opening the floor for any lectures from the audience. Okay, are there any other questions, comments? Mike, I see you're standing there quietly. Motion on the table is a continuance to July 18th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike. Walter Platt, 26 Drift Road, West Falmouth, for permission to demolish the existing garage and construct a single-family house with a garage under deck. Install a Title V sewage disposal system, dry wells, utilities, and unpaved driveway mitigation planning. Maintain the existing path and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, I'll say Jenny, still after Mr. McGraw's presentation.
Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, my name is Mike McGrath. I'm a registered engineer, a registered land surveyor. I work for Mr. McGrath, where the city engineer, land surveyor, with the paper plan and the notice. This is land on Drift Road. This is land on the east side of Drift Road. It's currently developed with a garage. It lies in the DCPC. The wetland resources that exist on the salt marsh. This is land subject to coastal storm flowage. Across Drift Road, there's a dune. There's also a structure over here. This has got 39,000 square feet of upland. There's about 26,000 square feet of wetlands. The wetlands are salt marsh, has COVID. Currently, there's a cleared area, and there's a busy plan, but I'm going to trace the outline of the cleared area. I lost it, so it's come around like that. So there's 3,250 square feet of cleared area, including the existing garage. This lies in the DCPC, and in the DCPC, you can develop up to 6,000 square feet of land. There's another provision that says that it could be an alternate 10% or 6,000 square feet. 10% is 3,900 square feet. We have 6,000 square feet of land that is going to be disturbed on this lot. That's 84% of the upland is then going to be set aside as vegetated. This garage is 116 feet from the edge of the salt marsh, and the proposed building is 120 feet from the corner of the porch to the salt marsh, and that's important to remember. The provisions that we are, well, let's talk about what the plan shows. The area that is in dark green is the area that would be disturbed during construction or is going to be abandoned. So this is basically, this is naturally vegetated area that's being constructed or installed so that the net area at the end is 6,000 square feet. There's a provision in the regulations that says that's considered naturally vegetated area if you wish in order, if this is planted in accordance with your schedule of plants. So that includes the garage area. We need to have sufficient space in order to build the septic system and the house, plus tear this down, and sufficient area for stockpile. So that's the reason that we have some of this area that is going to be vegetated. I do not know how many commissioners have been to the site, but to get to some of the stakes, you actually had to go through a tunnel on one of them. This is very, very thick vegetation, about the thickest that is. Most of it is vines. It's very difficult to get through. The reason I bring that up is Jennifer did call me today and say that I should comment tonight on 1039-7. That's a provision of the regulations that talks about the DCPC. And there's a paragraph that basically says that there's supposed to be a buffer width of 200 feet to 300 feet on paragraph 7. 200 to 300 feet there's no way to do any development on this lot whatsoever, within 200 feet. It actually says the commission should determine the exact buffer width based on the following factors: existing values and sensitivity to the disturbance, the buffer characteristics, the land use impact functions, and the buffer functions. What I would say to you that this is such a thick buffer that none of the activity that's going to occur in this one could ever affect the buffer. You can't even walk between these states. They actually put a cutoff path to get there. But 1039-7 shouldn't be considered by itself because it follows another paragraph that says notwithstanding the provisions of 1039-7, the distance is specified in 1039-7 being modified in a manner consistent with the provisions of 1018, but in no case shall the buffer distance be less than 100 feet. So under 1018, the buffer is 100 feet from the salt marsh, and there's a 50-foot from the dune across the street. If you consider all of the characteristics of the buffer, I believe that you should read paragraph 8, and I believe that if you think about how thick this vegetation is, 100 feet would provide more than a sufficient buffer. I've never seen vegetation so dense as in this area. So we believe that this conforms to your regulations, and I stand ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Mike. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Mike, are you going to provide me an existing conditions plan? We talked about that earlier.
Yes, I will. Yes, I'll give you an existing conditions plan. The existing conditions are on there. It's just that
No, it's just
so
difficult to
busy.
see, and it would be wise, I think, in this case, to have an existing conditions plan with the edge of the dirt road, because there is a statement in, I think it's 10.7, that says the upland portion of the lot shall not include the salt marsh, well, in this case, the salt marsh, the wetland areas, and any roadway. So I just want to make sure that the calculations were correct. Obviously, if the way you're looking at it, whatever you disturb, 6,000 square feet is going to be greater than the 10% of the upland. But I just want to make sure that's correct. Okay?
What I wanted to say was that
It's just
the
difficult to
lot
see.
area that I counted was this dashed line, which was labeled as a edge of a water main easement, but I took it to be the same as the road layout. And then I went down to the edge of the salt marsh. So when I describe the upland, I'm not including the area in Drift Road.
Yeah.
I am, however, I am including that little isolated island. It is upland.
The isolated island.
Yeah.
Okay.
Out
got
in the
it.
marsh.
Call it up in Dock
Got
Green.
it, yep. Okay, and then obviously your calculations on, lot coverage and easy nuts. If the board, could turn to your regulations. Oh, I'm sorry, Sue, you all have them. 10.397. If you could, for those of you who have your regulations, it states that Obviously, the site is within the DCPC, the District of Critical Planning Concern, so it's given a lot more protection than a normal resource area buffer is. That is why in that provision, it says that the buffer in this case is 200, let me grab it, set it.
A buffer width of at least
Thank
200
you.
feet and no more than 300 feet is required unless otherwise specified in FWR 10.39.
Yes. So you have to look at the functions that the buffer is protecting, the existing wetlands functions, the values of that, the sensitivity to disturbance, the buffer characteristics, land use impacts, and buffer functions. In order to modify that distance in this case, there would have to be a case made that, as Mr. McGrath has tried to do, that this buffer really doesn't need the 2 feet to protect that salt marsh. We need to know if they, and as Pat told us earlier, whether they will become a presumption. So you need to look at the interests of the DCPC and determine whether or not they have overcome the presumption in this case. For those of you that remember, you had a similar case years ago. Courtney, Ed, Betsy, and Lori will remember it, where we did require that 200-foot buffer, and it was not waived. So you need to look at that. Other than that, that was the only performance standard that I could see that was a glitch in the plan. So those are my only comments. Other than that, in the existing condition plan, Mike, and I appreciate that, thanks. And next time, Deb, bring your regs.
Okay, yep. Couple things, Mike. In reference to what Jen was saying to this board, that the members that weren't here, the project that had the 200-foot buffer that we did not waive was an existing residence. It wasn't a garage. So, just so the board knows that we didn't allow less than 200 feet to it was actually redevelopment. This is an old, obviously seasoned, not insulated garage. The other thing, Mike, on the reserve for the septic, because this is new development, did you, it's really hard, is a little dot in the line, is that what is that? Could you just take your pencil? Well, he has a hash line, but it doesn't go anywhere. And then he has a line with a dot. And the line with the dot on your thing with one dot isn't in your reference.
What's your
Proposed edge of clearing,
Go
I'm
back
sorry,
more.
proposed edge of clearing. All right, is the reserve, what,
Got it.
show me your reserve line. Is it just the?
There's a blow-up of the reserve area over here, and so
So it's this dot line, okay, the straight dot line.
I'm looking for a different
So where does it
color.
go to? Because it almost looks like it's up against the limit of work, am I,
Yes, it is.
okay.
I grabbed the wrong color. Well,
And that is the same amount of area as the existing,
Ye-
as a proposed soil absorption system?
yep.
Oh, I
This-
should get my,
This is,
yeah, I'm,
this is the same as this?
doesn't look it to me, Mike.
I'll get you a lot summary, or I'll revise the plan, but we'll make it.
Well, I'll go to Board of Health and see if they're okay with it, because I'm concerned, one thing that the board has to realize with Title V, that any new construction has to show a reserve. If this was a pre-existing, non-conforming, then you could not have to show the reserve, because you're by right allowed to upgrade a septic. This is not an upgrade, this is a new system, so we just have to make
So
sure.
where is the reserve?
It's in
It's that triangle
it's a
that's
little triangle.
north of the, look over on the right-hand side of your plan. There's a blow-up.
Again, up here
Okay, Mike, hang on, I'm getting there.
is there.
And if you look at the existing system on the first sheet, Jen, right above it would be to the north, it looks like a little
Looks like a sail.
sail.
That's your
Yeah.
reserve?
Exactly, yeah, and I just,
That's the oddest shaped reserve I've ever seen.
no, you just have to show
Yeah, I know.
the amount.
I have to
just
show
That
area.
area, I know.
I only have to show area.
But I'm just questioning that
I
area
will be happy
because.
to supplement by giving you,
It's not as long as that.
No, it's not as long, and I don't know, I'm just gonna do my own calculations.
Where's your,
I have
Is this
actually a
20?
question on Title V,
What
Mike,
is
that
this?
you could answer. Do you just have to show area because you need the reserve? What happens if you actually have to utilize the reserve?
you can actually
Strip out and
put it back in the same spot.
Okay, that
Yeah.
was just a question.
Yeah, and then the other question I
And
have.
there's, could I also,
Yeah.
out at the test center, they're testing 4 or 5 different technologies that restore soil absorbing systems.
Okay, I was just
So we may
curious.
never need a reserve after a while.
After a while.
Okay.
But that's a requirement now.
No, I understand that. I just thought it had to actually show where another system would go,
Go.
not the area.
Right.
No, not in this town.
Thank you.
And then the other question, Mike, is the distance. You've got the 101 foot for the reserve also, okay? And that's all for right now. I have a few more questions, but I'll let somebody else go, because I have to find them in my notes, and I don't want to hold anybody up.
Ted?
I don't know, I mean, we went through the whole thing, I don't really have any questions, it's fairly clear. So, I have no further questions.
Okay, you don't need any more
I've been to the
information to
site,
make a
went to every
decision.
stake, went to the rabbit warrens, I saw, I couldn't believe there's that much land out there. I mean, I saw, and I mean, I walked down to the salt marsh and behind, I paced it off to see the 100-foot back off the salt marsh, everything. I was very surprised to see this all fitting in there, but again, it goes back to our regulations, so I'm fine with what's been drawn.
I admit I went to the site, but I didn't go through all the rabbit warrens.
I was curious, I mean, it's like, when I saw the holes and I just said, okay, I'm gonna see if this is, I mean,
I kind of
can't-
poked in a little bit and I said, it is thick.
There's a couple stakes that you really have to look for.
Oh, yeah. We had the flags above them. I could
Yeah.
find them well. It's great. Very well done for the difficulty of that site.
Mike?
Then my questions have been answered.
Okay. Tom?
Boy, that was some of the happiest crap I've ever been in my life. It was the wrong day to wear shorts. There's a lot of activity on that road from time to time.
In spite of the axle breaking hole.
Well, I'm not even gonna,
Do you have any questions?
I'm trying to think of how I'm gonna ask it, so I'm gonna pass then.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Think
you.
about it.
Yep.
Ed? Don't go too quickly, though, because Tom wants to think about his question.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at elevations here, and I guess the upland here, when the area of the structure, the plan seems to say that the elevations are anything from 10.9 to, I guess, 11.5, 11.8. There's a 10.8 in another area. I'm also noting something on the plan. It says proposed building, it's showing the distance from the salt marsh. There's a line here that says proposed building to elevation 4.0, and in parentheses, it says Buzzards Bay, and it's 121 feet there. Mr. McGrath, are you saying that Buzzards Bay itself actually has an elevation of 4.0, not 0? Is that correct? Is that what you're saying here?
The zoning bylaw defines the waters of Buzzards Bay as the 4-foot contour. So the 4-foot contour is equivalent to being higher than the traditional mean high water. So
All right.
when it's labeled Buzzards Bay, it should have said the waters of Buzzards Bay. Because under the zoning bylaw, that's...
So the point being here, this structure, if it's at a elevation of, 10.8, I guess is the lowest number I'm seeing here, that's only 6.8 above the elevation of Buzzards Bay.
The first
Is
floor,
that correct?
first floor is 22
The
feet.
slab is 12.
Slab is 12, and the first floor elevation is going to be 22 feet.
Well,
That's what it says on the,
well, I'm looking down here, well, there's a 10-point elevation, 8 elevation down at the end of the septic system. The bottom right of the structure, it says 10.9.
but it says
That's
garage.
existing spot grade.
I was concerned about that, but if you look out here on the road, there's a 9.6, and I looked at the road, the lip of the road's about 10 when it
Right.
goes in front of this area. So I was concerned about the slab being 12 feet and thinking, you look at the last contour line, you see is 8, so I'm thinking we're going to be going up, 4 feet on a ramp up to the slab. But then I saw the spot grade here, 9.6, figured the road's about 10, and then those other spot grades are proposed. Those aren't existing. There's not a lot of spot grade information there, but there is some contours. But so that's just showing you the turnaround for the drive and into the underground garage of the slab. The slab's 12 feet.
All right, but the point I'm making here is that when we're saying 12 feet is only 8 feet above the elevation of Buzzards Bay.
On the other side, yep.
So you'll kind of lose 4 feet there in elevation if you kind of keep a structure
The waters of Buzzards Bay on the other side, yeah.
out of a flood area. And if we do, as we're reading this week about the coastline in the northeast United States being experiencing and predicting to continue to experience even more flooding as opposed to, as an effect of rising sea levels due to global warming, what protects any kind of structures, including existing structures or new ones, are things like uplands and salt marshes. But over the next 100 years, what I'm saying here is the existing delineations of a salt marsh are likely to change if the salt marsh is allowed to progress and migrate, I guess is the term, naturally. A lot of what is now upland will be presumably salt marsh. Sometime in the not-too-distant future. Of course, when I say not-too-distant future, everything is relative. To me, 100 years or 50 years is not too distant. I'm just, looking at this thing here, and I guess I'm concluding that this particular whole buffer area is one of those real vital areas where there's so little of our coastline where salt marshes will be able to migrate. But this is an area where maybe there is an opportunity for such.
And that's
That's all
partly
I'm gonna
why
say.
there's, in the DCPC, it's a 200-foot.
Well, that's all very,
300
very,
foot.
I think it's all very, very relevant
I
to
mean,
the
that's why
principal
that's put
issue
in
before
there.
us today,
Yeah.
right?
Courtney?
I've used up my quotient for comments, and I have no questions.
Could I just, NGBD is 0. Mean low water is about 1 foot low, mean high water is about 3 foot above 0, and the town bylaw puts the setback from zoning at elevation 4, so it was a foot at the time it was developed, but it was developed in the 80s. So the bottom line is, don't forget, the water's going up and down in here. So when you say statements how high it is above Buzzards Bay, you have to remember that we've added something to it. I don't know what this distance is today. The other thing I want to say is that no matter what, under 10.397, it says unless otherwise specified in 10.39. So I want to reiterate that when you read this, you have to look at all the paragraphs of 10.39. You just can't focus on 7 and say, you have to meet 7 because it says unless otherwise specified. So I believe that if you go by 10.398, it very carefully says that modified in a manner that's consistent with the provisions of 1018. When I look at that vegetation on the ground and how thick it is, that is the thickest buffer I've ever seen. And so I believe it's sufficient. I believe that I have to ask for continuance in order to give you...
Well, wait a second, we're not done. I'm
all right.
not done, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to follow up from what you said on what Ed said, that even if we were to agree, and I'm not saying we do agree, that this buffer is thick enough to deal with whatever disturbances landward of it, Ed's point is that as sea level rises, the salt marsh, that there will be more and more saltwater incursion into that buffer, which will eventually create increased salt marsh landward.
Right.
I just want to make that comment.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying, even if we were to agree with Mike, and I'm not saying I do or don't, but even if we were to agree that that buffer would be sufficient to protect the waters from the activity, you brought up an additional point, that what that buffer allows is for expansion of the salt marsh inward, which in fact, places like where Courtney lives, the salt marsh can't go any further inland because there's a coastal bank.
And can I just add that all of the scientific evidence, all of the information we see and read today, is all urging people in positions of making decisions like us, that we should in fact be taking into account the inevitability of sea level rise, which could be 2 feet, it could be 3 feet, I guess is a common consensus figure these days, or it could be even greater. No one really knows. But what we do know is that the sea
Within
level
the
is
next 20
rising, and
years, right.
nothing is happening that's going to change that. And if we really want to be forward-thinking and plan for the future, we got to start sometime. And this is one of those situations which to me raises a lot of those issues.
And one of the, and I will tell you, because went to some of the meetings before the Coastal Resources Group that did the report on Buzzards Bay and the report on the South Shore. But one of the recommendations they make is that as much as possible, the town should be preserving as much area for expansion of these wetlands like salt marshes inland as sea level rises.
We want to hope they have some place, the salt marshes have some place to go, because if you totally lose the salt marsh, because it had no place to migrate, then it has a great cascading effect on all sorts of other
Yeah, because it's a very productive system,
ecosystems, right, particularly
as well as
sea life.
as
right.
well as dealing with, buffering sea things to the land and land activities to the sea. Yes?
Yeah, to your point, Betsy, if I were 30 years younger, I'd have put in an application for a dock, because Sipawissa Marsh will soon be a harbor. But more seriously,
You better sell quick.
Yeah, more seriously though, Mike, I think you've made an observation that in your view, that 100 feet is sufficient. Following up on Pat's comments before at the beginning about, corroborating evidence, I would suggest that if you want to build your case, you may want to have some corroborating evidence to support that thesis.
Tom, do you have a question?
No, my head's going to explode.
Okay.
Mike, I found my other notes. If the first floor is at 22 and the height is 35, is this only going to be a 14-foot tall house?
No, no. There's a garage slab at 12, and then the finished floor of the dwelling unit is above, and it's at 22.
No, she wants to know what the highest point of the house is.
20.
What's the
your
peak
first
of the
floor
roof?
is
Oh,
20.
well,
it can't be more than 35.
it
So-
has to be less than 35.
35, so it's 15 foot.
35, yeah. No, 30.
From the first
13.
floor joist, to the
13
roof
feet.
is 35 feet.
No, that's not how you measure it. You measure it from the average existing elevation, I'm sorry, the mean elevation on the
Okay,
street
fine.
side to the peak. This has to conform to zoning. I've seen conceptual plans.
Okay,
It conforms to
Maybe we
zoning.
could get some conceptual plans in the file.
As long as you understand that we changed details, stuff that.
Yeah, I
shouldn't
know,
have.
yeah, I know. The other thing is, in 10.3910, it says a building setback line of 15 feet, which I see you have around the building, but it also says for any minor structural intrusions into the area, the building setbacks can be allowed, but we need to have an attachment to the order. Because you have stairways that are closer than the 15 feet, am I correct?
Yes. If you think about it, there's a post or two under here, so it's open, but yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you
Answer is
also
yes.
didn't show, I mean, is there mitigation for the trees that you're taking down? Because I don't see them, I didn't even see, did I miss the whole mitigation plan? I just saw a note that it's going to be planted with, I think, bayberry or something.
There's a few good-sized red cedars.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's just something else to think about. And again, the 200-foot setback is, I mean, from the edge of the dune, you're only, what, 90 feet. You're not even at 100 to the dune.
But it isn't, that's not
It's- I know.
200 to 300 feet.
It's on the Salt Marsh side. Okay, that was.
Okay, are there any other questions? Mike, you would like a continuance?
Laura Monahan, an attorney.
I represent the applicant as well, Laura Moynihan for the record. I just want to make one comment. We would like to request a continuance. We will address further the buffer issue for you. But just before we leave tonight, I thought it was appropriate to point out that under 10.18, which is the redevelopment provision, your regulations do say that 100 feet is an acceptable level of protection to a salt marsh. So that's why I think when you look at the DCPC regulations, when it's talking about consideration of 10.18, we have in the regulations themselves our own standard of 100-foot setback as being an acceptable level of protection. And as I said, we'll address that further, but I think that coupled with the extent of the vegetation here in this particular buffer, those are two important factors. Yes, it is a DCPC, and it's in a different category, but I just thought that was worth mentioning.
Madam Chairman, the jurisdictional boundary for this board is only 100 feet. There's a lot of literature out there that does state that that's the minimum that should be used to protect some of these areas. So, although I understand what Attorney Monahan is saying, having authority under 1018 to require anything more. On the DCPC, this is a whole different ballgame. This area was chosen and protected with a whole another level of regulations because of its sensitivity.
There's a lot of evidence that well more than 100 feet
Yes,
is
there are a number of publications out
important.
there that state that,
especially for a salt marsh.
Absolutely.
Yeah, could I also add something here? I'm looking at the plan, I'm looking at some of the elevations on the plan, westward of the landward, let's say, of the salt marsh, and about less than halfway from the salt marsh to the proposed developed area, I'm looking at elevation of 6, and it moves up to 8. So what I'm looking at, this whole area, and I guess we sort of know it instinctively, anybody who's been to this area, and we've all been there, I think, on many occasions for different projects, it's very, very low-lying real estate. Yeah, it's nice and lush now, but again, it's one of those areas that's going to be most vulnerable to all of the problems that occur with even minimal levels of sea level rise. It's just very, very low lying. buffer area. That's a real key, and that's what makes it perhaps different from other projects. If this whole area was much higher in elevation, then it might be a different situation, at least in my mind. But because it's just such a low-lying area, I see lots of problems, not only for this lot, but for many of the properties in that area in the not-too-distant future.
Jen, do you have a date?
I think it might.
Well, you-
Absolutely not the 11th, and the 18th is... Hang on 1 second, I'm sorry.
Where's my,
I'm looking for my agenda.
where's my agenda? Thanks. Oh, here it is. Too many papers in front of me. Jen, are you thinking?
It would either be the 18th, and you already have 3 continuances on that date from tonight, or your next available hearing after that would be August 8th. It's okay. August 8th?
I request a continuance to the 18th.
Oh, the 18th? Okay, sure.
July 18th?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion at the request of the,
Sorry, go ahead.
at the request of the applicant to continue to July 18th.
Second.
And then I do have one more question and one more recommendation. I think we should put the Solomini, and I don't know the numbers, but Solomini, Weber, was it, or Webb? Somebody down there. We should put, and LaRusso, were all projects that were similar to this one. Actually, Solomini and LaRusso were. And that was, they were a long time ago in the DCPC.
Okay.
And the reason is that we also required both of those projects to do a hydro study to find out which way the water was going. And I don't know if that's, I started to read the DCPC regs, and I think it's in there that you should do that. And I remember they had test wells, and we made Solomini. Solomini, I know we did, and I know we made LaRusso do it. So I just want to be consistent so that we know what's going on. And if we just put those two in the file so we know that we're not being arbitrary, that it's...
I would request that the commission give to us copies of whatever you put in the file.
All of our files are available to you for inspection at any point in time. That's a matter of public record.
It would also seem to me that if you introduce something into a record and you say at a public hearing, you should give copies to the applicant.
That might be a courtesy, which we may or may not afford to you, but I don't believe it's a requirement, Mike. Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table. Laura?
Could I just make a request then, pending the staff's availability, that maybe those be put in within a week, so we have time to look at them? They're put in the day before a hearing. That's.
Well, they're right downstairs. Both files are right down there.
All right, so
believe.
they're put
No,
into
no,
the record.
I can't guarantee a week, but if I put
Okay.
any, regarding the publication flags, buffers to salt marsh, I'll give you guys a heads up.
Okay.
Okay, I'll let you know.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Don't
there's a...
find me 2 weeks, but I won't put it in at the very last minute before. Okay, I just have next week off, so my time is short.
There's a motion on the second on the table to continue this to July 18th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Continued request for hearings under a notice of intent. Paul Janke, 194 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, for permission to replace 2 10-inch existing pilings and to install 2 new 10-inch pilings.
Madam Chairman, the quorum sheets were placed in the cart. I think they were,
Over here?
I don't know, they could be on your little,
I'm going to be recusing myself, Madam Chair.
Okay.
You were on 2 in the hearing. Oh,
And why, Madam Chairman, looks for a quorum sheet. Mike, you didn't drop off those things we talked about today, did you? Okay. All right.
Did you recuse yourself last time? Because I'm going to write it down, you recused.
Oh, they're not here.
Want to put it, you,
I
is
was-
this your mother-in-law?
Yeah.
Oh, you did,
Okay.
you did. I remember you leaving.
But, down below?
You were here, but you recused yourself. I'm going to write that in.
Are they underneath the agendas?
Well, we have Ted, Mike, Maury, Ed, and Courtney,
Okay.
and that.
Here they are. They're right here. Nobody was listening.
You said they were over there, and we
I was
looked.
pointing at the black pen, sorry, I wasn't specific. Ted, Mike, Maury, Betsy, apparently Tom recused himself.
Yes, he did.
Ed and Courtney.
Yep.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
He did recuse
Yeah.
himself the last time. I do remember that
Yeah,
now.
he did.
The
It
group
says recused.
recused.
Yep.
Do you have any more questions for Mike?
Well, Mike, I'll let Mike speak.
Mike, it's your turn.
I'll be very brief, because I'm hungry. I represent the applicant, Paul Yankee. We've had a few continuances, and at the last continuance, you made it very clear I could not ask for any more, and I'm not going to. The reason we were asking for continuances was we were hopeful that we could arrange a meeting with the abutter to the north at Lot 14, where we were proposing 2 tile pilings close to her pilings. Mr. Yankee was unable to get a meeting with the abutter. I don't know that as because she doesn't want to be cooperative. I don't know why, but the bottom line is we couldn't get you a letter. So I just tried up until the last minute, which was yesterday. And now we have a hearing, and I have proposed, and I have revised plans, and I'm expecting to, if you'll let me submit the revised plans, the only difference from what you've looked at is I've eliminated the 2 tile pilings on that side. So you had an application before you for 2 tile pilings on the north and 2 tile pilings on the south.
And
We
you
can't-
just eliminated them completely from the north.
Right, because I can't get you a letter.
Right.
And
Right. And the letter
Right,
might
it's
not make a
within 10
difference.
feet.
And the letter might not make a difference.
Right.
So, I can't get another continuance, but I don't think there's a lot to look at here. So I was going to hand these in, and then you, if it's okay with you, Madam Chairman, close the hearing. You have 21 days to deliberate and look
Okay.
at these plans, which you already know what it is, because it's just taking the 2
Right.
pilings away.
That's fine.
I
The only
think,
other
I
thing
think we
want-
can live with that,
The only
Mike.
other thing I wanted to say is, please, if you could, when you deliberate, look at my May 2nd letter that I submitted to you. I tried to justify why we needed them, and I tried to establish why we were overcoming the presumptions of significance, and I tried to show how the impact of the 4 pilings was minimal, and it's
And the
even...
2 is-
It's even more minimal.
is twice as
if
much.
that's a term.
Twice as minimal.
Twice as minimal. So I hope that you will look at the letter when you deliberate.
Is it, you've already given us the May 9th
Yeah,
letter?
it's dated May 2nd.
Yeah, I have it, Maury. It
Okay.
should be in there. Double check. It's going to, not that side, Maury. Flip that
I didn't see
packet
it.
over,
Yeah, it should be
okay?
there.
And that's where all the other
Okay.
stuff that goes in. The front folder is, the
June.
front part is
May
always just
16th?
the
May 2nd.
basic notice of intent.
I don't know that I've seen
May
that.
2nd.
Yes, you have it.
Okay?
Yes.
I don't have it with this,
You might not
okay.
have it with that file, but you
It's
all
in the
received
file.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
I hope that if you don't have it, you'll read that.
Look at it, right.
Please, I mean, I've
You're
tried...
so nice
If
tonight,
you don't,
Mike. Please.
well, if you don't read that letter,
I will read your letter.
it may not make a difference to any of you, but I took time to try to justify
This is
it.
what, when you were trying to overcome the presumptions.
Thank you, Mike.
There's the
You-
12
Thank you,
plans.
Mike.
You may hand them in, and I'll call for a motion for someone to close this hearing and take it under
I make a
advisement. Let's let Mike do it, so he can practice.
I need to practice.
Yeah.
I need a motion on behalf of the applicant to continue.
No, to close the
To close the
hearing.
meeting
And take it under advisement.
and take it under advisement.
Oh, that's right, this wasn't actually a practice, now you've done both of them.
Going to date it.
Okay, there's a motion on the table to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Do I have a second? No.
Second.
And we have a
Pass them down
second.
the table. Here, Mike.
Are there any
Pass them down the
questions?
table.
Any questions from the audience? No? Any questions from the board? Okay, all in favor of closing this hearing and taking it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, closed. Frank Bauer, 145 Seafit Road has been continued to August 15th. Vote orders of conditions. John and Charlene Peterman, 355 Sherwood Drive, East Falmouth.
Yes. Courtney, Tom, Mike, Ed, and Ted. Courtney, Tom, Mike, Ted, and Ed. Okay, gentlemen, this is, Jack Landers College project out on Sherwood Drive, and Wayne Tavares had a company, say Wetland, propose a planting plan for you all. I went out there, I looked at the trees, we managed to save some of the trees that were of concern to some of the board members.
You saved them from the stewardship program.
Yes.
That was-
Did save them from the stewardship program. I did. You should have seen me out there. Like, what about that one? That was
Very good.
The only concern you guys might have is the spacing we had on this plan. It was very consistent with county guidelines for coastal planting. It's a little bit,
Liberal?
it's a little wider than you typically, see in your planting specs. They did calculate the removal of the invasive, the area of invasive that they were going to remove, and mitigated that with the appropriate amount of shrub species. That was a concern of staff's during the original hearing. They were removing the invasives, which is great, but even invasives provide a small amount of wildlife habitat value, so you can't just remove a thing of invasives and not replant that area. And they did that with native shrubs, so that was a good thing. They provide a food source, nesting habitat, things like that, cover from predation. But you do, when you remove it, you do need to replace that into the landscape. So, I mean, it was pretty straightforward. The only thing I could see the board struggling with was the spacing. So what do you guys think? Other than that, the majority of the house was outside the jurisdiction. They're looking really at the planting plan. And we pretty much addressed all the concerns that I had during the hearing.
I think if we can mirror what we would typically have as opposed to the county, and he did admit that was his reference.
He did. He talked to me out there. I can see a 4-foot spacing out there as opposed to your normal 3. It's fairly vegetated out there.
So he's saying go to what we normally do, you're saying you could live with what they have.
No, because what they have is 6 and some.
Yeah, they would, if we split it in the middle on that, because we don't have to go as deep because of the existing vegetation.
Oh, so you'd say 4 feet?
Yeah, that,
And sometimes we do allow 4 feet on the bigger.
Well, he's got a planning note here, maximum of 3 foot on center.
that's
So
for,
let me see, let me, don't have that plan with me. I accidentally left it downstairs.
So maybe he changed that.
Um,
Number 2 on the
yeah, this might not be that.
mitigation planning note.
Sure would drive in this.
All right, pull the Sherwood Drive back 30%.
Should be a minimum of 3 gallon size,
Hold on.
at least 3 of them.
Ted, no, you're looking at Jack's plan? and you're looking at 145 feet. Okay, so we're not even on the
Maury
right.
handed that.
We're not even on the right
Do you want-
property down here.
You guys always
So that sounds fine.
It's 4 feet, those of you who are on the quorum, you
Come on,
gentlemen
guys,
on
pull
this side.
together. I'm
Ed,
counting on
is
my
4 feet
men
all right
here.
with you?
Look at number 2.
4 feet, 4 feet?
Yeah, I'll find out if
4
4
feet's
feet.
okay with everybody.
4 feet's good.
Okay, let's have a motion on the table.
I'm in.
I think
I'll
consistency
move
is
to
good.
accept the order as proposed and discussed, including
Okay,
a
do you have
4-foot
anything else to
spacing.
say, Jen? Wait,
No, I do not.
Tom has something else.
Second.
Oh, Tom seconded. We have a motion and a second on the table to accept 4 feet, plus the rest of the order.
So disappointed in you gentlemen.
All, at least you got something out of them.
I know.
Some nights,
It's like pulling teeth.
I know, some nights, but actually people, except for Ted, Ted's been a little naughty sometimes. Everybody else has been pretty good though. Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Okay, now,
Now, this, I haven't received a call or any notification that they've changed.
I haven't said what this is. Wait a second. Vote certificate of compliance, Vista Capital Management LLC, 20 Beach Street.
They were supposed to contact me when they removed that portion of the driveway that you're allowing them to remove and replant.
Oh, yes.
For keeping the patio, and I haven't received any correspondence from them yet, so I would say delay this till the next hearing.
Okay, so are we gonna make a continuance?
Yeah, you'll continue it.
On behalf of the applicant, continue it till the next available date, which is
Let's give them to the 18th.
July
Because I
18th.
won't be able to go out that first week I get back.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to continue, Maury, to July 18th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. The only other business I have is that Ted and I and Jen revisited our marsh sites, and
We're disappointed.
we're disappointed. You know, 10 years, they'll look like they looked before there was any disturbance, but they have a long way to go.
They're struggling.
Yeah, so Jen, I put a report together. Jen, could you send it out to everybody?
Is
We-
that,
we,
yeah,
made
and
sure-
you know, I also sent it to DEP the other day.
Yeah, you told me you were going to.
And we also made sure we went to, I mean, as highest point we could find and shot the surrounding area so you can see in contrast,
Yes.
rather than the up-close pictures we had before made it look like, okay, that was this and this is this, but when you look above, the surrounding area, even if it was scarified a bit, if possibly in the past, they're all bright green and growing right now. All the shoots are coming in, and the other interesting thing was.
He means all around,
Yeah.
everything, the
But
marsh
in
looks
these
very
sites where
healthy.
they were trampled
Other than
and where
where-
this experiment was taking place, it's not coming back very well at all. In fact, even outside of the area that was dug is almost worse than the inside. And some of the plugs and things have been put in such haphazard way that you can still, I mean, you could put this inside the areas between the plugs. You could put, stones inside there. You could put your hand in there. And the funny thing is, probably due to the oxygen, those are doing better than the ones that were planted and covered.
Yeah, I don't know that at this point.
You can see the
I
new
would
shoots coming
suggest
out of
put
those
a look-
plugs.
Yeah, that I would suggest filling all that in, because
Yeah.
you're right.
I mean, it's
that has
almost like-
provided oxygen for the new growth,
So
in the
taking
plugs that are there.
away from it, probably the best was to take the plugs and loosely put them in a level a little bit higher than knowing you're going to get some subsidence, and leaving some area in between the plugs. Not big, but enough to put your finger in for the oxygen to get the new shoots going. Because the ones that were planted, some are planted sideways.
Some were upside down.
Some are planted, some are upside down.
Some still upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't put back, they
Yeah.
went to the
So, I mean,
side.
those aren't going to be doing well.
And this was under the supervision of
Yes, of expert.
somebody who we know? I cannot believe it.
Well, unfortunately, the people that did the damage, the young fellow there, Camille David, said that he had no restoration experience, and he's the one out that did the restoration.
So it was being
it's
monitored and overseen.
Yeah, so it's understandable it was not done properly.
Well, we were told it was overseen.
Where do we
maybe
stand
from a
with
computer
communication
room.
with the school?
Pardon me?
Where do we stand with
Working on it.
communication with the school? That's-
They're, basically, we've told them you did not, that you did not accept the reviewers. There are basically requesting a detailed description why, and they're also demanding the CVs and work experience of the reviewers that, I came up with.
Which is fine.
Yeah,
But-
which is fine, I just have to.
Did you
I'm
write
having
that
trouble
letter yet?
getting that.
I think that should come from Pat.
Okay.
I think you should tell her what the board's objection was, and I
Okay.
think it should be, if they want to,
All right,
if they